Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Amya Kumar Das, associated with the Department of Sociology, Tezpur University. Today, in this session, we are going to discuss on modernity, risk and reflexivity, especially Zygmunt Bauman's position on liquid modernity as a part of contemporary social theory paper. So, as we all agree that the goal or agenda of modernity was to bring order into the society. Order could denote various things. Order making became the most important aim of modernity. To find a reliable foundation, to remove the vulnerability of persisting vulnerabilities which are persisting in the society. So, the vulnerabilities which brought uncertainties that could be removed or settled by modernity. Initially, this was the agenda of modernity. So, though modernity increased various chances, various possibilities or various opportunities, at the same time it brought risk and uncertainties. So, what is the main goal of modernity? Modernity aimed or claimed rational thinking. It tried to establish or inculcate rational thinking among the human beings. In the pre-modern societies, where men were supposed to run or govern by the emotional aspect, modernity claimed or it started inculcating the whole idea of reason, rationality, freedom, liberalism, so on and so forth. So, in this context, how social scientists and philosophers like Zygmunt Bauman, Ulrich Beck, Anthony Giddens, they have various perspectives and position on the issue of modernity. So, recently or in contemporary times, we have seen there have been debates regarding the position, social location, and about various issues. Different people have different kind of opinions. Some of them, they have argued that presently we are in a postmodern era, whereas people like Anthony Giddens have argued that we are not in the postmodern era, but we are in the high modern era, ultra modern era, so on and so forth. But to be precise, modernity has been challenged by the postmodern term, where these postmodern positions, they have challenged various claims and various kind of arguments provided by these modernist thinkers. If we look at various kind of arguments, it will be clear that during this claim of meta-narrative or objectivity or rational thinking, how we have other forms of disadvantages which are put forward by this postmodern thinking. Hence, postmodernity emerged as a rejection of the models taught by modernity, such as individualism, freedom, liberty to choose, whereby society deemed to be seen as a market. Bauman has used the term solid and liquid in order to make a difference between 2 years of modernity and postmodernity, respectively. And liquid modernity is used for contemplating the contemporary scenario. It makes one inquisitive to pose a question. Has Bauman used the term liquid modernity instead of postmodernity to criticize the failure of postmodernity as a counterforce to modernity? Every one of us is busy making our self-identity that leads to individualization, and the individuals are turned into consumers. If you look at the whole idea of liquid modernity developed by Zygmunt Bauman, or the so-called, for that matter, self-reflexivity or reflexive modernization, how philosophers and sociologists have criticized the so-called capitalist society and their consumeristic culture. In the due course of time, in our discussion, we will be more clear about Zygmunt Bauman's positions on modernity and what he means when he says that or defines liquid modernity. Bauman says that basically modernity was in a desperate need of establishing a structure. Everything had to be functional, and no vagabonds would fit into that structure. Hence, if we take his stand or opinion or in his language, he says in the city of region, there were to be no winding roads, no cul-de-sac, and no unattended sites left to chance, and thus no vagabonds, no vagrants, no nomads. What does he mean when he says this? He wants to establish that modernity wants to put everything in a particular order. It needs society according to its own wish. As described by Anthony Giddens and Ulrich Beck, modernization is having its own forces. It is like a juggernaut. It crushes things. It co-opts things, whatever comes in its way. So it's a kind of powerful force which is difficult to resist. When Bauman talks about liquid modernity, he uses it in a metaphorical sense. Fluid or liquid is used as a metaphor for explaining the present day scenario of preamble boundaries in the time of growing consumerism and globalization. So, these characteristics of liquid is mostly associated with the idea of lightness or fluidity. The term liquid modernity befits well when we wish to apprehend the pleasantly new phase in history of this modernity. We try to exercise our freedom, our liberty. We try to choose things between various options. We are no longer tied or attached to a particular profession, which earlier were based on certain kind of hereditary continuity. Presently, with the advent of modernity, human beings are more flexible, more free. But question arises, is it true? How free we are? Whether this idea of modernity is totally free from all sorts of negative consequences? Whether the answer is yes or no. But Zygmunt Bauman say that there are problems. there are problems inherently attached to the whole idea of modernity. That many people, because of this consumeristic idea, consumeristic force, market ideology, we tend to ignore those negative possibilities. Zygmunt Bauman asserts that in the 21st century, society is no less modern as compared to the society in the 20th century. The only difference is that contemporary society is modern in its own way. What is that? That the society has transformed from a heavy modernity to the light modernity. That means we have our own decision making power. We decide things on our own way. It has given power to the individual. So in that sense, that individuals have gained more agency in relation to the earlier times. This is the main distinction what Zygmunt Bauman is trying to make when he says that we have transformed from this heavy modernity to the light modernity. So when he says heavy modernity, one of the examples what he gives is about Fordism. Bauman compares heavy modernity with early capitalism, whereby he says everything was supposed to be in an order. He gives the example of Fordism in a model where the model was supposed to control by the managers, heavy machines, assembly line production system. Everybody would be doing their own duties, and thereby together they could create an end product. What is the main thing or important aspects of modernity he is trying to define here? Orderliness. In a system where the Ford company used to produce heavy, with the help of heavy machinery, automobiles, vehicles, it used to have a particular order. It used to have a particular order. Starting from the production to the management, everything were in order, in an orderly format. But when it came to the light modernity, when it came to the late modernity, that it gave consumer power, choosing, it gave consumer power to choose from various options. But that options had enormous risk. It provided opportunity, it provided choices, but along with that came risk, challenges and threats. So there are few themes which are associated with liquid modernity, which Zygmunt Bauman interestingly putting these themes into his perspective while defining liquid modernity. One of among them is duality of modernity. In the book on modernity and the Holocaust, Bauman highlights the dual face of modernity. The dual face of modernity, he means that in one hand, the period of enlightenment promised emancipation, rationalization, development. Moreover, modernity was deemed to be a tool for civilizing process. But the irony that even Holocaust happened during that time. The irony that big ecological catastrophes are happening because of this high technological growth, technological progress. So how to reconcile these two? He says, he argues in his concept that duality of modernity, it is having the two sides or two facets of a particular coin. In one side, you have promise of more liberty, more civilizational forces, more reason, more technological advancement, at the same time it gave you various kind of forces and power to colonize, to exploit, to kill others. In this point, he tries to give us a kind of dual aspects of modernities, a contradictory things which he is trying to find out in case of this modernity, where he describes nicely in the concept duality of modernity. Another concept or the theme associated with the liquid modernity is the concept of global and local. Globalization and localization may seem to be inseparable, but the population of the two parts of the world live in different sites. Some get the opportunity, while others who are not capable of interacting to the global force are marginalized. Hence, globalization is a paradox, while few get benefited and rest are secluded. So, the interesting concept of global and local, when we combine these two aspects in the context of globalization, it again creates, like the duality of modernity, it again creates a kind of contradiction, paradox, where it gives advantageous position to some people who are capable to capture the market forces or the network, whereas it exclude and marginalize other minority community. So thereby, he discusses the concept of global and local in the form of globalization and localization. Another theme is space and time. In the modern times, as we all know, the space is shrinking and we have a different notion of time altogether. Due to the advancement of technology, the communication system, the notion of this individual interacting with the immediate neighbor or immediate persons in their society, nearby society, has gone down. Because of this high technology level, people are connecting to each other from the distant world, but at the same time, they have lost contact with their immediate neighbors, kin and kin. Another important theme Bauman discusses on individuals turned into consumers. What is this? This is the most important concept in developing his idea of liquid modernity. In the book, The Liquid Love, Bauman discusses and very aptly depicts the impact of globalization and the growing consumerism in our day-to-day social relationships and interaction. In this era of liquid modernity, even though it provides us with unlimited opportunities, it has had an adverse effect on the individual, on the social relationship and the society as a whole. The consumers are provided with unlimited choices, but what that choices are all about? That choices are all about to compete with each other. It is giving us a kind of idea or instigating us to make our neighbor jealous by buying important gadgets. In tele-advertisements, newspapers, and various other sources, we find that each and every time we are told, we are convinced to buy things, even if you don't need, these things are made necessary. These things are made essential part of our lives. So this consumerism culture has unpredictable characteristics. When we go blindly with this consumeristic culture, it has certain kind of risk attached to it which we do not see either or which we ignore generally, but it has certain consequences and uncertainties and risk. That is what Zygmunt Bauman is telling us in his own argument, where he says that it has killed love. This emotion, the personal relationship, we used to have it earlier, it was replaced. These things were replaced by the whole idea of market economy and consumerism and the consumeristic ideology. So, in this session, what we have seen, Bauman reminds us on the issues of modernity and its consequences through its analytical tool called liquid modernity. He reminds us about the various kind of anxiety we have regarding the modernity. No doubt, we are in a position where we are having more opportunities, more choices, but at the same time, even if we are aware, we are ignoring various kind of risks, uncertainties and threats posed by this consumeristic culture. These kind of cultures are taking away personal emotions, individual relations from us and putting that into the market economy, the so-called consumeristic culture. That is what Zygmunt Bauman is reminding us by giving us various kind of scenario like this globalization, consumeristic culture, globalization, so on and so forth. To summarize this, we can say that Zygmunt Bauman is talking about liquid modernity in relation to the solid modernity. He doesn't want to name it as postmodernism, rather he likes to term it as liquid modernity, which is different from solid modernity. In a globalized world, more movement of people, information and technology are possible. Thereby, it is breaking the solid modernity or modernity and takes it further, and he terms it as liquid modernity. So, this liquid modernity in the globalized world has given us opportunities at the same time due to migration, due to movement of people, due to this market economy. It has created various kind of other problems as well. It has not only created a market situation where people are moving because of the uncertainty of the nation state, which creates wars. It has created lot of havoc and refugees, thereby lot of uncertainties. He says that because of this globalization, people have lost contact with their own community. People are involved in more competition in terms of consumerism. Thereby, they have lost touch with their own people, with their community, with their neighbors. With the advent of liquid modernity, the community bonds are breaking. Again, if we look at the other aspects of this modernity, it has created dangers. It is creating havoc, ecological disaster, so on and so forth. In his own points, he is trying to say that we are going from a certainty to various kind of uncertainties. Even though we are provided with much options, it is giving us danger. It is taking away this essence of love, humanism and emotions from us by giving us this consumeristic culture. For more information, log on to EPG Pathshala website. You have various references, e-texts and other source of materials. Thank you.